I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I still mess up, but I'll just start again. I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get enough. See what's next. Birds don't just fly. They fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no, I won't give in till I reach the end and then I'll start again. No, I won't leave. I wanna try everything. I wanna try even though I could fail.
Hello, once again, and welcome back to Zootopia Minute, the minute-by-minute podcast where we review and analyze the Oscar-winning hit 2016 animated film, Zootopia. Yes, big excitement today, much celebration, wow.
And a very special day for Zootopia, too, because we are releasing this episode on the 1-year anniversary of Zootopia.
Yes, it's a year old.
And not only that, our show is now 21 episodes old, so drinks to celebrate the Oscar win, the 1-year anniversary, and our 21 episode.
Yes, here. That was me clinking my microphone, the glass against the microphone. So,
Yes.
internet cheers for you.
So, before we continue, tell me, what are you drinking?
This is a really awesome German beer. It's called Weihenstephaner, and apparently it comes from the world's oldest continually operating brewery.
Nice.
And this is some of my favorite beer because it's a wheat beer, and I love wheat beer, and it's very drinkable, and it tastes like liquid bread. So if you like
Awesome.
Hefeweizen or any of that kind of stuff, this is a very good one. What about you on this 21st minute?
I am Asian, so I am very, very lightheaded and don't do well with alcohol. In fact, I rarely drink alcohol. So when you told me we should drink alcohol to celebrate, I had to rush to my refrigerator, and the only alcohol we had was a bottle of woodchuck hard cider made with pear instead of apples. It was my roommate's, so big shout out to my roommate Skepa for letting me drink his last hard cider.
Yay. I really like pear cider. Pear cider is good. Do you get like the flush when you drink? Because I hear that's a thing that Asian populations will get, is they'll have a specific reaction to alcohol. Well, they'll get really flush skin, like
Yeah, they get
redness.
really red face, and yeah, that does happen.
That's so interesting.
I also don't have the buzz phase, so I rarely drink alcohol because I go straight from drinking to headache. So
It
I
just
never
skips over
feel
the-
buzz. Yeah.
Interesting.
I
means you
skip
just-
over the fun parts.
You just have to have less, I guess. That's funny. Well, before we get too off topic, this will be interesting for sure. Wow. Yeah, this is minute 21, which means we're going from timestamp 2100 to 2159.
So it starts when Judy says it burns her up when she sees folks with backwards
We
attitudes
finally
towards
find
foxes.
out what burns her up.
Yeah. Backwards attitudes towards foxes. And it ends when she sees little Toot Toot in the reflection of her car.
Yeah, so Judy had a nice parting greeting with Nick and his son and goes about her business, putting out tickets. And then the very last thing we see is a glimpse of Toot Toot once more.
And
the
she
fennec
turns
fox.
around to say hi, probably. But she looks very excited
Yep,
turning around.
But we don't know. It got cut off. Again,
Yeah.
that keeps happening. Grr.
Another cliffhanger. All right, so we're probably going to talk a lot about the Oscars later in the episode, but first we want to get this minute out of the way, which is a very, very fun minute, to be honest. One of my favorites. Very, very cute interactions with Nick, his little son Toot Toot, and Judy.
For sure. I thought this was fun. It shows Judy is working on her community outreach as a police officer.
Yeah, so the first thing, so after she says it burns her up, the next thing she says is, you're a very articulate fella, which it's, I like when you read, because Tumblr is Tumblr, but when you read like Tumblr comics or when you see movies or shows or books where, I guess, I'm not going to stereotype, but when white people condescend to, I guess, African Americans, that's kind of normally how they talk.
Oh, your
You're a
grammar is
very
so good.
bright, clean fella, very articulate, so...
African American vernacular English is a legitimate dialect of English.
Yes.
It is. Ave.
But we do see Judy has this kind of condescending attitude towards Nick, whether it's just intentional or not.
And it's, again, the hypocrisy, because just a moment ago, she was totally ready to show extreme prejudice against Nick. She, like, unholstered her Fox spray, and now she's like, it just burns me up when people are so prejudiced. It's like, shut up, Judy. You were so ready to spray him in the face.
She's white knighting or fox knighting at the moment.
Yeah, and now she's all like, you're real articulate, and that to me just sounds clunky, which maybe was part of the joke. It's like, you're a real, stretching, like reaching for some sort of compliment.
She's like, oh, you
articulate
you aren't sneaky.
Fella.
You aren't sneaky like the other foxes. Hey,
you
didn't
aren't
try
like
to punch me.
The mental image I've built up in my head of your entire species. Good for you. Good for you having the initiative to not be the stereotype. Good for you.
Good for
Nick.
rising above your genetic code. God, Judy, you're such a racist.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm learning about Judy through, like, the past 3 minutes have all been Judy's not a good person, basically.
Oh, and this will tie in a lot with our Oscar conversation later on. But continue on with Judy. We see her interactions with Tutu, and again, it depends on which side of the population you ask. But if you ask one side of the population, they might say that Judy telling Tutu that he could grow up to be anything is either very, very heartwarming and motivational, or it's babying Tutu with unrealistic expectations of what society will bring to him.
I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing to say, except that it's like he wants to be an elephant. It's like, you know what? How about you set your bar a little bit lower there, little Tutu? Maybe like a chartered accountant, or a lawyer, or a doctor. Elephant might be kind of up there for a fennec fox. Just saying.
Imagine if Judy went to an Asian person, says, you could be a Mexican if you grew up. You could be anything you want to be.
You can be a Mexican if you wanna. You can leave your friends behind. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We had this discussion before, the transracialism thing. It is a thing in the real world. But of course, it's a completely innocent statement, I'd say. She wants to be encouraging. She gives him one of those little tiny stickers. The junior police officer sticker, just for him in his little elephant costume.
He looks so excited. He did the toot toot when Judy did that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so Nick, I want to know if Nick is also just being somewhat backhanded with the way he's speaking, because he's like, I've rarely met someone so non-condescending, or non-patronizing, rather. It's like, really? I think there might be some double speak here going on, but it's hard to tell.
Because if we really do go with the, I guess the social statement this movie's trying to make, and if we put a white actress in the role of Judy and a black actor in the role of Nick, it does kind of play out in that they're both being condescending to each other, but trying not to outwardly show it.
They're like speaking past each other, yeah.
So
more interesting social dynamics.
Yeah, it shows how great this film is, and the reason why it won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film, it's really well deserved.
Oh yeah,
because of all these like little layers it has. Like almost every minute we talked about, it's just packed with so much social commentary.
It is, and people got different messages out of it, but it was very What I can appreciate about it is that this movie doesn't try to be so overt with one specific message that can like be polarizing, right? Is you can get several things out of it, and they're never really in conflict with each other.
Unlike the Oscar speeches.
Yeah,
sorry, did I say something?
But we're jumping a bit ahead still. So we have this interaction between Nick and Judy as they've stepped out of the ice cream parlor. And they've got their jumbo pop, their gigantic red popsicle that Nick seems to be able to hold all right. And then he gives it to his kid as they're walking away, as he's saying, oh yeah, you're telling him he can be whatever he wants to. That's something I tell him all the time too. He seems like such a good dad. But I don't know about giving that tiny fox that huge popsicle. I feel like that'd be a bit top heavy and unstable. So maybe he's not a good dad.
Well, that's why he said 2 paws. So he warned him.
I have to sip this right next to the microphone so you can tell I really do have a beard.
So yeah, I wonder who his wife is.
Oh, we haven't thought it. Well, hey, let's not jump to conclusions. He could be a single father.
Well, he had to. Okay, well, who is Toot Toot's father? If Toot Toot is
who's
Nick's
the baby
biological
mama?
son? Yeah,
who is Nick's baby mama?
Because fox are not asexual creatures that just bud off of each other and breed that way. No. So
they reproduce by budding. That's how furries reproduce, right? I think so.
God, you're getting into some really weird kinks that
actually
might be real.
I wonder what would happen if we tried Googling that. furry budding. Let's not.
Okay, let's not, because this is probably the one episode a lot of newcomers will start listening to. So I don't want to scare them off.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah.
This is Zootopia Minute.
So, anything else about this specific minute before we continue on to the other topics of discussion?
Well, it's not quite the last thing we see Nick and his son walking away. Judy watches them, smiles to herself, says, "I've done a good deed today." She doesn't say it, but she's totally thinking it.
I'm not a bigot today.
And then we cut to another scene where we get this nice pan down from the city. It looks like we're in the Savannah district.
Mm-hmm.
And Judy's still handing out parking tickets. And I was able to pause right as she's punching in the number. First of all, she's given out something like 260 tickets that day, apparently. Somewhere around that is what the number indicated. So a lot of tickets on this particular day.
Now I'm wondering how much of them are actually legal, and if she tried to stretch her tickets just to...
Well, all cops do that. We know this. But I was able to pause it as the paper's coming out of the printer, and it's only a $25 fine, which is not bad for a parking ticket. I mean, I don't know about where you are.
We don't know the exchange rate of Zootopia to US dollars.
Right. The only we can only ascertain value of this currency by looking at what things cost. So if a parking ticket's 25, a jumbo pop is 15, what would that mean? We don't have a jumbo pop equivalent in the US, though.
Well,
Maybe we do.
We could assume like one big jumbo pop, like I would say it's at least $50. Like if you melted down popsicles of that equivalent size, I couldn't imagine it being at least $50.
You could probably, I bet you can buy those huge popsicles somewhere. It'd have to be from a store though, because I know you can get, like if you go on Amazon, you can buy giant candy bars, giant Toblerones for like $100. For like $300, you get like a meter-long Toblerone that's like the same proportions as a regular one. So it's just this massive amount of chocolate, and I want one because Toblerones are amazing. But so I wonder, chocolate is more expensive than an ice pop would be. I think
now I'm curious.
We're going to have to watch in this minute and see if there's more things that have an indicated price. And then we'll go through and do some calculations and figure that out. I can commit to doing that because I'm a nerd and I will totally look at the costs of things and try to figure out what an exchange rate might be. But seriously, $25, like if we were to assume that it's somewhat similar to US dollars in value, $25 for a parking ticket is not bad. Like, I don't know about where you are, but in Seattle, parking tickets are at least like 3 times that much.
I don't have a car, so they can't even get me for a parking ticket. So I'm actually looking up, I'm using our one Google search today, which we never follow. The world's largest popsicle, the Guinness Book World Record for largest popsicle, is called the Snapsicle, and it weighs 35,000 pounds and stands at 25 feet tall. They don't have a price on it.
No, I have a feeling it's not for sale.
But the largest one is 25 feet tall, so that's pretty impressive.
That's fairly intense. I'd maybe need a few friends to help me finish a popsicle that large. I can't even do a single 6-egg omelet at Beth's in Seattle. So
I think it all melted. Oh, I actually remember hearing about another attempt. There was I'm not sure if I can find this article, but there was another attempt for a world record popsicle. I think it might have been Snapple. But they attempted to break the world record for largest popsicle, but they were disqualified because the popsicle melted on the way there. It was something like that.
I'm looking
at an article that says giant popsicle floods New York.
Oh my gosh.
It did melt on the way and it did flood.
Well, wasn't there like a great molasses flood in like the 1700s in some like colonial town? I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember hearing about like a historic event where the streets of this town were flooded with molasses that was flowing. I don't even know how that happens, first of all. And wouldn't that be a very slow flood? Like, oh no, the molasses is coming, but it's like this slow wall of like sticky brown sugar substance that's just maybe moving an inch per minute or so. It's like, oh no, it's gonna run over the house. It's gonna flood the house. Quick. In the next week, we have to gather our belongings and evacuate.
Well, apparently this popsicle melted much faster because they brought it out in 80-degree weather. So it was the first
well, that's their
day
own
of summer.
fault then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it melted so fast, here's the quote, it was quite a lot of fluid. On a hot day like this, you have to move fast.
Yeah.
So the New York firefighters had to wash it down with hoses, and they were disqualified because it melted before they could get to the judging place.
That's a lesson in planning ahead. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, folks. You heard it here. Zootopia Minute. I'm just going to say the name of the podcast enough times to get it in your head. Tell your friends. Well, that's about the end of the minute. The last thing we see is as Judy is putting on this last parking ticket, this most recent parking ticket onto a car, in the reflection on the windshield of this car, she sees little baby Toot Toot in the back. Somewhere behind her, we see his reflection. And then the minute ends and we don't know what's going to happen, but she notices him and says, she gives a sort of gasp or moment of realization. We don't know what's going to happen next. We'll have to keep watching.
Find out on the next minute of Zootopia Minute.
Yes, keep watching. Never stop watching Zootopia Minute. Oh, well, that was an interesting minute. I can't wait to keep going. We're finally getting further into this movie and plot things are starting to happen, so that's nice. Because what a great plot it is, and very deserving of this Oscar win that we saw on Sunday. I'm so happy that that happened. So I didn't watch the Oscars.
You did not watch the Oscar. I did, and I had it on in the background, so I wasn't really paying attention to it. But I wish I didn't turn it on because aside from the little famous gaffe at the end where
yes,
Moon,
I watched the
Moonshine,
clip of that
Moonlight.
after the fact. He pulled a Steve Harvey, right?
Yeah, beat La La Land. Most of it was filled with, I don't want to be rude because I'm sure a lot of these actors and artists were very, very sincere, but a lot of them had some oddly condescending or patronizing comments. They used it as a platform for political messages. They remind me of Judy this episode where
I've never met someone so
like
non-patronizing. Yeah.
Yeah. Almost every other speech was, we must not build borders with our neighbors to the south, or no immigrant should be banned from America, or this goes out to all the brown boys and black girls in the world, or something like that. I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Lots of soapboxing.
This is for the I actually heard the term non-gender conforming. This goes out to the non-gender conforming kids out there.
It is the current year. This is what annoyed me about, I forget what it was. There was some other award thing that happened recently, and Meryl Streep made a big, huge political thing. Because these celebrities always just use this for soapboxing, right? And she has that, it's like, people are just watching MMA and sports are not the arts. They're not the arts. And everyone, gives a big cheer. Yeah. The thing is, I'm fine with your political soapboxing. Just present in front of people that, disagree with you, maybe. You're in this Hollywood place and every other celebrity there is basically a clone of you, right? Everyone has the same opinions over there. It's one of those big bubble utopias, right? Yeah. So you think you're making some sort of impact, but you're in a place where it's super easy to say that kind of thing because everyone agrees with you, and it's more for affirmation from those other people than it is about the issues, Yeah.
My annoyance doesn't go out to just the liberal side. It also goes out to the right wingers and conservatives who were boycotting the Oscars because they called it a liberal limousine for some reason. We are boycotting the Oscars because our Trump says so. When the little gaffe happened at the end, they said, proof that liberals can't do anything right. So I was like, both sides were just bugging me last night. Yeah. Come on.
I didn't watch the Oscars because I don't care particularly about any of what those people have to say. That's the thing. If I did watch, I would watch for the movies, right? I wouldn't care
it's for the appreciating of the cinematic arts. It shouldn't be a soap. Both sides shouldn't use it for a soapbox to justify their own political beliefs, but I understand. So it seemed like this year, a lot of the wins, actually, let's use Zootopia as a good example. So when Zootopia won, I think half my Twitter friends and half the people I'm following on Twitter. So a lot of
first
people
of all, before we get too into that, just refresh people on what it was nominated for and all that.
All right. So Zootopia was nominated for Best Animated Feature, and this was actually the first year Disney had 2 animated films released the same year. So every year Disney always has one animated feature. Disney did not release an animated feature in 2015. I believe Zootopia was slated for that year, but they pushed it to 2016. So this is the first year that Disney has 2 animated features competing with each other. So Zootopia and Moana.
You didn't mispronounce it. Remember, you're supposed to do that.
Moana. The other film was Kubo and the Two Strings, a really highly praised film for its artistic stylings, and Red Turtle. And then Disney also had the Jungle Book movie, and now it has Star Wars and the Marvel films and whatnot. So Zootopia won. It was the big contender for winning Best Animated Feature, and it won. And when it did win, I think half my Twitter feed was in celebration for Zootopia, and the other half was really, really angry and moping because they wanted Moana or Kubo and the Two Strings to win. And in fact, some of them got so upset that Kubo or Moana didn't win, they started ranting and raving and just completely signed off for the night. Which I'm surprised, but it comes down to two things. So whenever I look at a work I like, there's really two aspects I have to look. Is this the best in this area because of how it pushed the artistic innovation of that specific medium of storytelling? So if it made use of all the aspects of that medium, or is this film good because it had a universal story that connected to me individually and evoked an emotional reaction from me? And I saw that most of the categories were like that. So on one hand, you have films that really, really push the boundary of cinematic arts and technology. And on the other hand, you have films that have more potent political messages for this day and time. And a lot of them, I see, are actually very, very relevant. So you had a film about the black female scientist at NASA. You had Moonlight, which is about the life of a African-American growing up in society. And if you look, most of these categories, it seemed to be more the political relevant connections that won. And Zootopia kind of falls in that category because if we want to look artistically, artistically, Moana was really, really good for the visuals and very, very good for the music. Kubo and the Two Strings, I would say, was the big innovator in animation for pushing what it did. But if we want to talk about a movie that really had a relevant message in this day and age and connects with our generation and a lot of the generations on a more personal level, it would be Zootopia. And same as the best film nomination, which was La La Land, which you could put in the category of well-made, pushing the cinematic boundaries of what musical and film could do. And then Moonlight, which is more relevant in the cultural sense in the same way Zootopia was. And Moonlight won. So there seemed to be a very, very big battle. But I think in this day and age, especially post Trump winning the election, it seemed the more politically relevant films won. And I would say they are well-deserved. Like Zootopia definitely was well-deserved. So no problems with that.
So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how like the selection process after these nominations work. Like who actually decides who gets the awards? Do you know?
So it's the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Science. And there's been criticism in the past few years that this academy, this board, is made up of old white men.
Right. So that's part of what I was trying to touch on too, is that a lot of this, like since Moonlight won Best Picture this year, there's some people saying like, is this sort of as a reaction to the criticism that hashtag Oscars so white, or is it a legitimate?
They did react to the criticism. So last year, I didn't see Moonlight. I did see La La Land. It was good. I did not
see La La Land or Moonlight.
Zootopia, I think, was better, but La La Land was good. Going back to last Oscars, there was the big blackout the Oscars controversy because a lot of the big films that were nominated did not have people of color, though people made a point that it was more African Americans and they didn't really care about the Latinos or Asians who were not represented, but whatever. So the Academy of Motion Arts and Science reacted, and in fact, they specifically showed the change from last year to this year by bringing out Jimmy Kimmel announcing, now we finally have a president who actually truly appreciates the arts and science. And he brought the president of the Academy of Motion Arts and Science, who was a black female. So they wanted to show that we changed from our old white board of the previous years, or I guess people's impressions of a board that's controlled by old white men, by bringing out their president, who is now a black female. So obviously it was a intended message. Whether it shows progress or not, I guess it depends on which side of the political spectrum.
Well, and it's conspiracy fuel too, isn't it? Because for those that did miss it and haven't seen it yet, when we're referencing this sort of kerfuffle, it was that when they were announcing the winner for Best Picture, they originally announced that La La Land had won, and all the crew came up for La La Land and started talking, and then you sort of see this commotion going on in the background with the envelope. And it turns out they had somehow read the wrong thing or something, and Moonlight was the real winner. And so they brought the Moonlight people up. But it's like, first of all, how did that happen? And, it's reminiscent, for those that don't know, like Jimmy Kimmel even referenced this. It's like, I think you pulled a Steve Harvey. Like, I blame Steve Harvey. that's making reference to a time Steve Harvey was hosting some sort of beauty pageant.
It was the Miss Universe pageant.
Miss Universe.
She accidentally announced Miss Columbia winning.
Yeah.
When it was Miss Philippines. And his
Really
mistake
awkward.
was, and during rehearsal, he actually didn't have a cue card. So when he got the cue card, he didn't know that it says Miss Columbia was the first runner-up. He just read Miss Columbia because that's what's on the cue card.
So do we know what, like, specifically what happened at the Oscars?
Yes. They actually know. So ever since the Oscars got started, 69 years ago, they've always had the same company manage the kind of behind the stage thing. So they're the ones who get the red envelopes and all that stuff passed out. Because they don't know which side, so when the people announce the Oscars, who wins, there's two sides you could enter the stage. So the company doesn't know which side each specific actor that announces the category is going to go on stage. So they have all the envelopes for all the categories on both sides equally. So they know which side they go on. So the actors from the movie Bonnie and Clyde, because the movie was celebrating its 50th anniversary, they had the two lead actors from Bonnie and Clyde go on stage. And he went on the side, the other's opposite. So previously, they announced the winner for Best Actress, which went to Emma Stone's character in La La Land.
I see.
Because of that, the other side he went through, they still had the Emma Stone envelope, and they accidentally handed that to him. That's why when he went on stage, he looked very, very confused, because his envelope said Best Actress Emma Stone La La Land. And at first, a lot of people, like I saw this live, a lot of people thought he was trying to make a joke by withholding the name. And when he passed it to the other actress by him.
Yeah, I saw that pause there. Yeah.
She was the one who read La La Land because that's the first thing she saw. It said Emma Stone La La Land. So they assumed, okay, that means La La Land won. And that's when they went on stage. And La La Land was predicted to win a bunch of Oscars. It was nominated for 14 Oscars. It's a tied record with Titanic.
And they did win plenty of other Oscars aside from this one, right?
It won 7 Oscars. So yeah, that's why the confusion happened. And a lot of people saying it is kind of conspiracy, and it also kind of feels bad because this is a very, very momentous win. You have in a time of a lot of political tension, a lot of racial tension. You have a film. I think that I haven't seen the movie, but I think it's about a black person growing up and having to deal with their sexuality. So it's something that's a very, very potent message that's really relevant to our contemporary times. And that should be a big honor on itself. But it was overshadowed by the fact that there was this mess up. And a lot of people are saying if it wasn't for the fact that there was this mess up, it wouldn't have overshadowed this momentous win.
Yeah. So. And like I've seen people saying like it was a planned thing. It's, oh, now you have the person of color president and everything. It's like we have to somehow tarnish it again. It's like, guys, just let a mistake be a mistake, right? I'm willing to accept that it was an honest mistake. Those things happen, you know? Yeah. There's not some huge conspiracy behind it.
And I think the La La Land production team took it with much grace. They were very, very graceful in conceding the award.
That seemed to be the case.
And then the Moonlight people were also very, very gracious in this entire mess up. So it was bad. It's bad that happened, but everyone acted nice. And I think it's refreshing to see in this day and age people acting courteously in situations like this.
Right. It's so rare. Yeah, I maybe I should start watching them just in hopes that interesting things like this will happen again. I think we should wrap up fairly soon, but just before we go, again, guys, this is the 1-year anniversary of Zootopia being out, and it's definitely a film that's had a very interesting impact on our popular culture. So just as final parting words, Choco, I'll let you go first, and then I'll give my say. What do you think is the significance of Zootopia as a film in our popular culture over the past year?
Like I was saying earlier, it was well animated, but I wouldn't say it made any innovations in the cinematic arts for pushing the animation, aside from how they did the fur. The fur was very, very impressive. But I would say it was very, very important for how different generations, different segments of the American population, probably the world population, could see this film and not really put one solid political image on it. No one thought the film was talking down to them or completely supporting their view, but everyone could kind of feel for either character. Everyone could either identify with Judy, everyone could either identify with Nick. And it brought on a lot of fans, especially a lot of people who, I guess a lot of people are very wary about, I guess, the furries or something like that. They thought this would be a furry film, but a lot of people came to this film, saw it, and took something personal with them, especially in this day and age where we have millennials kind of coming up and not really knowing where they are in the world. We are living in an age where there is a lot of class and racial tension, and almost every single TV show, movie, and comic is filled with very, very obvious and biased political commentary to one side or the other. So for a film like this, it's very, very refreshing, especially since Disney is so used to the cookie cutter formula. Like, I love Moana. Don't get me wrong, I really, really loved the film, but the reason I liked it was so cookie cutter. I could look at Moana and it has the exact same outline as every other Disney film I like. I love that this movie broke the mold and it could kind of transcend that kiddie movie. It has important messages for kids.
You and your transcendental media, your transformative art.
Yeah. So I would say it was a very, very great film, and it's definitely my favorite film of the year. And I saw Arrival. I loved Arrival. La La Land was great, but Zootopia is still my favorite film of the year. So
yeah.
How about you?
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think part of the significance of Zootopia as a film is that it was very topical without being overtly such and without only being applicable to maybe one ideology, right? Like I said before, I think everyone can get something positive out of Zootopia. It was topical in the sense that, no matter what direction you're looking at it, because as you said, you can relate with Judy, you can relate with Nick, you can relate with the predators, you can relate with the prey, you can relate with any one character or many characters in this movie, and still take away this main overarching message that prejudice is bad. That was the sort of overarching message of this movie, and that, among other things. But I think what was so important about Zootopia, and, whether people realize this or not, is that it's not so much about, this group versus that group, Team A versus Team B, white versus black, any of that kind of thing. It's attacking not the concept of one group powering over the other, but the idea of prejudice itself, that it goes in any direction, and that it's the main problem that precipitates all these other problems, all institutional racism, those kinds of things, all stem from this basal concept of prejudice, right? And so I think the timing, honestly, couldn't have been better, too, with 2016 being an election year. When we did that election episode, it really stood out to me, too. It's like this movie and this election have so many parallels. And the minute we happened to be reviewing days after the election, too, after we found out who won, was all about Judy's parents being prejudiced against foxes, and it's this fear of the other, right? And I think that's what this movie is attempting to combat. It's what it's attempting to break down. And I do not think it could have been timed better, and I'm totally glad that it came out when it did and that it won the Oscar. I think it was very deserving of it. It's going to be an important movie to me for a long time, I think. So I guess that just about does it for this minute, guys. Thank you.
Let's do one final toast to Zootopia on its Oscar win and its 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, clink my microphone once more. All right, guys. I hope you've been drinking along with us, by the way. Could have said that earlier maybe, but, grab a beer, enjoy a beer sometime today. This is our 21st minute, so thank you so much for joining us for it and for all the minutes of Zootopia that you've listened to so far. We really appreciate you guys listening and getting the word out there. Tell your friends if you like this podcast, because that's the only way we can spread, right? Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Zootopia Minute. Be sure to follow us on Tumblr, zootopiaminute.tumblr.com. Email us, zootopiaminute@gmail.com. And we really appreciate you guys listening, and we hope you stick around for the future, for the whole movie.
Take care, everyone, and have a good Mardi Gras weekend.
That's right. Have a good one.